Welcome to this episode of Rattling the Bars. I'm Eddie Conway, your host. We have been following COVID-19's rise across the country, and obviously it's rising even more dramatically now. But we have been looking at the impact that this pandemic have had on prisoners. Over 70,000 prisoners in the United States has tested positive so far. And because we're in Maryland, we're looking at Maryland and asking the question, what's happening here? And we see that almost 5,000 prisoners have tested positive for COVID-19. But what's disturbing is one particular jail in the Jessup region has the most cases. It has over 350 cases. Of the deaths that's been occurred in Maryland, most of those deaths also have occurred in the Jessup region. And of course, there's 5 major regions in the state with massive prison complexes, but the Jessup region seemed to be the one that's hit the hardest. So joining me today to kind of explain what's going on and talk about these cases in Maryland is Gregory Chassidine Carpenter. Gregory, well, Chassidine, thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Eddie.
Okay, first, get kind of like, you were in Jessup yourself. I mean, what's the deal? It's MCIJ has so many cases. It's unimaginable. Why do you think that's happening? And just so by comparison, there's 3,000 prisoners up in Cumberland, Maryland. They have like 1 case. There's over 4,000 prisoners in Eastern Shore. They have like 2 cases. Hagerstown have 3 or 4 cases and with 5,000 prisoners. Jessup, which has about 3,000, that Jessup region has about 3,000 prisoners itself, but it's got 350 cases. Can you talk about that a little bit in MCIJ and the culture there?
Well, I mean, that's a very interesting diagnosis in a lot of ways. But one of the things that we learned is that they're not really providing the people housed there with, proper cleaning supplies and those types of things. And even just the living conditions are not, as well as they could be. So that's one of those things. And then, all it takes is just one person, to show up, and then it begins to kind of snowball from there. But, we had got some reports, about, them, just mishandling, the situation and the individuals there. That's one of those real reasons, I think, for the rise in numbers there.
What concerns me, I've spent years in the Jessup region myself, as well as years in Hagerstown, and unfortunately, sometime in Cumberland. What strikes me is that the jails with the least, in the regions with the least amount of cases, are all jails in white communities. Cumberland is a pretty much all white community. Hagerstown is pretty much all white community. Eastern Shore, ECI is all white community. But now Jessup is a Black community. And so up in these other regions, apparently they're giving out face masks, hand sanitizers, gloves, social distancing, et cetera, et cetera. Why is that not happening in Jessup? Is that the Department of Correction, or is that management in the Jessup region?
Well, always, the buck stops at the top. However, boots on the ground, it's a management problem because the people who are tasked with, making sure certain things are in place and followed through with, are not doing it. I mean, for whatever reasons they are, maybe just their whole orientation, about the system itself, and a lot of times, because we know that the officers, et cetera, they, now have masks and shields, all these kinds of things that in some ways can protect them. But by and large, it's just the whole application of the policies and the processes that have been put in place, and how effective they are in carrying them out. And I think, again, even though the buck stops at the top, it's the boots on the ground who creates the weakness in the process.
Mhm. Is there any idea of the number of people that's been released that at some point early on there was pressure put on Hogan, Governor Hogan, that is, uh, to release at-risk prisoners, age prisoners, etc. I understand only a few has been released. Do you have any idea of how many prisoners have been released, or what's the holdup for releasing all of them?
Well, I don't know exact numbers. Like you said, I know that there's been several released, just throughout the system, both on pretrial and, the convicted individuals. But like, any of the processes, it's just bureaucracy. And it's just that, paperwork is sitting on somebody's desk, or somebody has failed to follow through with a phone call, just to, make the process complete. And again, it becomes a part of, the human inconsistency, that we deal with when we deal with any, situation. However, you think that because of the seriousness of this pandemic, that they would be a little bit more aggressive in addressing and allowing those people who have been qualified or met the requirements to be released and be done with.
Um, since all these cases apparently are happening in MCIJ, which is the Maryland Correctional Institute in Jessup, um, what can the public do, especially those people that has loved ones or friends or family members? Is there something the public can do to put a spotlight on this particular place? It's ground zero, it's a hot spot, and it's the only spot that seems to be uh, just exploding with the amount of contagions.
Yeah.
What can the
Well,
public do?
that's a very, very interesting and timely question, I think, because in light of, I mean, clearly with social media, we are seeing stuff, instantly that happens around the world now. I think that even though the visits are not happening, but loved ones and concerned people can reach out to the politicians, in their local area and in the areas in which, the Jessup region is located, and put pressure on politicians, because I mean, even though we just had a series of elections in Baltimore City, well, the primaries, I should say. So we just, identified a new mayor. We just identified a new city council president. We just identified a new comptroller, and we've identified some other new councilmatic district people, as well as those who are incumbent. And I think that these people need to understand, one, that yeah, individuals may have committed crime, and they have been sentenced according to the structures that are in place. However, we shouldn't allow individuals to just be sitting ducks. And I'm saying all that to say is that use social media. You have these platforms. You have these individuals who follow you, uh, to get them to call Department of Corrections headquarters. Call your local councilmatic person. Call your congressman. We got, again, that's another. We just had a new congressman installed, and so call these people, put them to work. They want to be representatives of the people. Put them to work. It may not be the sweetest tasting opportunity, but it's an opportunity nonetheless. And especially when we have identified, when I say we, the structure has identified individuals who are high risk. And we know that, you have a large number of individuals in the penal system and in the justice region in particular who fall into that category, one, of age, two, of health. And so these individuals should be focused on clearly, and then their loved ones, if they still have loved ones that exist, to, knock on the doors, make the phone calls, send the letters, do whatever it is that they can do to make the people aware. And the people, meaning the power structure, the people who make the decisions, the people who can say, let them go, and they'll let go. And then make sure that if you're going to, do this, just have a support network so that these individuals, once they come home, they are not left to chance. They are not left put in a more vulnerable situation. So I think that, just that, and I think that's a small ask, although it will, ring loud, but it's a small ask. Because all it takes is a couple of minutes to pick up the phone, a couple of minutes to send an email. And then if you don't know what to say, organizations like Out for Justice, you can reach out to them. And there are other organizations, even Leaders of a Black Struggle, Beautiful Struggle. I mean, they'll give you ideas about what to say in a phone conversation or in an email or in a text, or just if you're going to set up a social platform and you're going to go live. It doesn't have to be a long piece. It's just some things that you want them to know. That our loved ones are in a vulnerable situation. Those that are eligible to come home, release them. We'll receive them. But we need you to act. And so that's, I think, what, the public can do just right now.
All right, so I think we'll make an effort to add the Secretary of Public Safety's email or phone number, and maybe Out for Justice and information also. And I'm thinking that the easiest and the best acts might be to say everybody need to have masks, everybody need to have sanitizing stuff, everybody need to be practicing, they need to practice safe distancing. Those things apparently are happening in other jails. Why are they not happening in MCIJ? And I think the public and loved ones and friends need to ask that question of the Secretary of Public Safety. And I think we need to revisit this again, probably in another week, because those numbers seem to be going up. So if you could keep an eye on it and we could get back and look at it again in a week or so, that would be helpful. Can you do that?
Absolutely. I would make it a point. In fact, I will, get on top of that as soon as, we conclude what we are doing so that we can, put some things in motion. But you're right. You're just making sure that but that's the other part of it. One of the conversations that I heard, from inside was that that's not happening, and that and the way it should happen, so those things you just mentioned, they should be reinforced and mandated, basically.
Okay, so thanks for joining me, Shasta Dean.
I appreciate you asking me to be a part of it, Eddie. Thank you.
Okay, and thank you for joining this episode of Rattling the Bars.